Are we there?
Yeah, we're
Let me-
here.
Okay, good. I haven't started the live yet. I'll
Okay,
wait
that's fine.
wait until you're ready.
Tobias will be back in a second.
Okay. How did the meeting go?
Oh, good. Yeah, we're
Was
pretty good. I don't know, Eli and Aubrey showed up and talked about some stuff, and I think the biggest thing was like trying to figure out like our spring excursion with everybody, but I think that'll come when the time comes.
Are you
But
gonna continue to have that meeting, or didn't you say something like you're gonna have one now?
maybe we're not sure. But the problem is that so Aubrey shows up to every single one, obviously.
Right.
But Eli can only show up on Fridays, and then you show up on Wednesdays. And it's hard to get other people interested in it.
You see, my debacle is the fact that I try to get so much done before the show that it doesn't make any sense for me to try to put some, excuse me, good thoughts, stuff that I really like to talk about,
Right.
and then leave it hanging,
That makes sense.
That's where I'm at on that. But I know that I'm trying to think of the name of the lady again. And she was up a little earlier on that Pandemonium Con. And there were like, I listened to it earlier this afternoon, and it was rocking again this year.
Oh, nice.
But what's her name? Godfrey from
Linda Godfrey, yeah.
She was supposed to be on, and she wasn't there.
Oh, weird.
So I don't know what it was that was causing that, but I think what we'll do is we've got another minute and then we'll start.
Sure.
How are you, Tobias?
Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Good, good.
Good to hear.
Glad we got everything up and running.
That was no problem this time. That's just exactly how my boss sends our meetings.
Worked great.
How everything goes,
All right.
I'm still there. It says we're live. No way.
It does indeed say that.
Now we're live. Hopefully they'll make another comment. Anyway, well, we might as well start, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll just do a little introduction and tell them some of the things that are going on with shadow hunters and that, and then we'll get right into it.
Sure.
Okay. Hey, welcome everybody to the Shadow Hour. I'm Greg. I'm a paranormal investigator with Shadow Hunters, and we have various people on the air, on the page, live during the week. We have Sharon on 6 o'clock on Tuesday night with the Oracle cards. Scotty Rourke is on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock with his ghost stories. And of course, this hour is the Shadow Hour. And we support lost limbs on this particular program. So from that point on, people that I have on the show are usually people that I've known from the paranormal groups, from conferences, from events, that nature, and people that I meet at those events too. So two people that are up above us here, it's Emily and Tobias Wayland, and they're from the Singular Fortean Society, and they're based out of Madison, Wisconsin. And how are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Great. Yeah, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
I'm still a little, but I do that every week where it takes me a few minutes to get wound up.
Oh, yeah.
Understood.
No, I hear you.
what's interesting is you guys just came off a meeting from Singular Fortean, and you were involved with some things. And I'm going to turn that off because that's bothering me. But anyway, you guys were involved in the meeting tonight. You want to go ahead and let everybody know what you guys were discussing in that, as far as going ahead and having a get together?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was our Friday meetup with the other Singular Fortean Society members, and so we had a couple of friends in there. Our friend Aubrey and then our friend Eli were both there, and we were talking, and this is pretty standard for those meetups. I think the conversation is all over the place. We went everywhere from ghosts to cryptids to UFOs. Well, it was interesting. And now, Greg, I know you've seen this before. Aubrey decided that he was going to go on one of his little adventures during the meetup, and so he kind of set out, and he was going to try the Randonautica app and see if he could find something on there. Yeah. Well, and we didn't know this because I haven't used it in, I don't know, probably 2 weeks. I think last time we were at Forest Hill Cemetery, but it's down right now. So he gets out there and you've seen, it's St. Mary, Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful historic town. And so he's out there in this, I don't even know what part of town it was, in this very interesting looking part of it anyway. And he gets out there and the app doesn't work. And so we're just like, all right, well, he'll give us a little tour anyway. It's fine, but what are you gonna do, And then Eli, and for anybody who doesn't know, Eli actually has a podcast that he does with some friends of his as well, Cryptid Campfire, and he's also been shooting a YouTube TV show recently, and so he just got back from Lake Champlain.
Wow.
Home of Champ. The famous lake monster, and so that was an interesting experience. We talked about that with him for a bit. And that conversation was all over the place. When he was out there, he was staying with another friend of ours, Alex Pedikov, and he said that they had a great experience out on the lake. Got to talk to a witness who had a relatively recent sighting, and that was super interesting. But then also, I guess Alex took him out to the site of the Betty and Barney Hill abduction experience.
Wow.
We got to see that while he was out there too. So, that was cool. I mean, yeah, it was a great conversation. And well, like I said, you've been in on quite a few of them. You just never know where those conversations are going to go.
Yeah.
Well, for some people though that are listening and watching and don't understand Singular Fortean Society, why don't you explain that part, because that ties all this together of what we're talking about right now.
Sure. So the Singular Fortean Society, we take our name from Charles Fort. I mean, that's where the word Fortean comes from. And Charles Fort was an early 20th century collector of weird news stories. And so what Charles Fort would do is he would collect all these weird news stories from all over the world, and he would put them together and he would write about them and do this sort of tongue-in-cheek speculation as to the interconnectedness, the overlap between all of this weirdness. And, for instance, he very famously came up with the quote, "One measures a circle beginning anywhere." That is to say, when applied to the paranormal, to weird stuff, you can understand something about all of it by investigating any of it. So sort of in our own research and investigations, we've certainly noticed the similarities in narrative between people, reporting things like hauntings and alien abduction and, UFO encounters and all this other stuff. There is some overlap there. And so we take this sort of holistic approach to paranormal investigation where we're just interested in all of it. We don't really specialize in any one particular area. And so that's, that's sort of the singular Fortean Society on a philosophical level. And
Yeah.
then from a more practical point of view, a lot of what we do is like paranormal journalism, covering paranormal news. We'll investigate and interview witnesses, go to sighting locations, haunted areas, things like that. So conduct that sort of more traditional investigation as well. But then when we report it, we try to report it journalistically as far as the actual reports themselves. Now, if we're sort of reporting on our own experience, then that would be more of like a feature article, because that's told from our point of view. But then when we're writing the news, we do try very hard to be journalistic and sort of like objective and all of that. But then we do a lot of community stuff. Well, like the Paranormal Art Portal. I mean, that's kind of your baby, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so we have a community of artists, and it functions primarily as a database. And what artists can do is they can submit their work, and we set up a profile for them, showing their work and some of their info. So if somebody's looking for a weird paranormal inspired artist, they can go to our database and look at different artists around the world. And we've done some cool stuff with them. We do our Haunted Holidays contest every December.
That's a fun one.
So they all do their like spooky, weird winter and Yuletide themed work. And then, the public gets to vote on their favorites. So that's a really fun one. And then, of course, we have a community where we chat and talk art. And
do you have some link for that, Emily, that you could post later on?
Yes.
That's cool. That would be really cool. And, I just want to add in there that you're one amazing artist.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of people don't understand. They haven't seen your work. And from what you just did on the fly, I thought it was really good with the cryptics.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we haven't done one of those in a while. We'll have to do that again.
And something that came up, and when we brought this all together and we're talking about all these different facets of the paranormal, I was watching that. I had discussed it with you briefly at the meeting that we had the other day about the connection between consciousness and aliens, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Paranormal beings. And if they have that power, and you're on an investigation, and say, for instance, they are other ultra dimensional beings, that you would be able to go ahead and pretty much bring them right to you.
That'd
You know
be
what I'm
interesting
saying?
to try. Yeah.
By inviting them. And they had an example on that show where they showed this being.
Sure.
And they had these pictures of these two beings that were literally invited to join them.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, well, are we misinterpreting what we see on a ghost hunt then? Is half the stuff we see really something that's interdimensional, more than a spirit or a ghost?
I think that's a really good point, and I think it's really tough to say. Actually, here, give me 1 sec. I will be right back. Like literally 2 seconds. I'm just gonna grab.
And I want to talk about butterflies too.
Sorry, sweetie. Sorry, Greg. You brought it up. I wanted to show you this. So this is one of our spirit boxes, and this is one that we use when we're on location, like moving around a lot. And so what I had done, speaking of the connection between like consciousness and the otherworldly, is I had, prior to us going into the kettle, I think it was 3 times ago, I had constructed this bind rune out of using a combination of various runes to sort of signify the connection between our consciousness and the other world, right?
Right.
And so what was interesting about that, though, is after doing that, the first time after doing it, that's the time when we were out in the kettle, like I heard the strange, like, garbled conversation.
Yep.
But then the spirit box, actually, that's when it picked up all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yep.
And, right. And so, like, we were getting some very clear messages coming through, like, sort of asking what the like, what this thing was, like, what's the intention of whatever we're interacting with out in the kettle.
Mhm.
And we were getting words like probe. Like,
That was
that's one that
crazy.
really stuck with me.
It was like the first one.
It was, where, like, basically the idea was that this thing, whatever it is, and it's hard to really nail it down, right? You can't say, even though people see Bigfoot, people see Dogman, people see anomalous balls of light, they see all this weird stuff out there. It's hard to really nail down one specific, like, phenomenon, or even, like, source for any of these phenomena that people tend to favor as being, like, the one origin for this stuff. But whatever it is, it seemed as interested in us as we were in it. And that came, like, right after I affixed that bind rune to sort of connect us to it. So yeah, I mean, consciousness definitely, it plays a big part in this. Absolutely.
That emblem is the same thing as playing the notes in Close Encounter of the Third Kind.
Yeah,
Basically, you're broadcasting.
I agree.
And that's the amazing part about it, is because it's like, this is just brings a whole different realm in everything that I've been doing. I mean, it gives it new possibilities, and at the same time, it makes more sense out of the fact they're not there. If you go into a room and you're going to be a fudge muffin, and I don't think there's going to be anything happening here, and blah blah blah, and the
Right.
negativity, and then the next thing you know, nothing happens all night. Where if you're positive and you want to communicate and you want to go ahead and say, hey, you're welcome. You're welcome to join us. We're all here together, and it comes on really strong that way, and it makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, I think that essentially what's happening is when you incorporate magic or spiritual practice, or even, like, meditation or intention into these practices, what you're really doing is incorporating consciousness into these practices. And I think at that point, once you start using your consciousness, you're speaking their language.
Yes.
And that's how you communicate. Absolutely.
It's just like a light bulb goes off, and you have now you have light in the room, and you can see everything you have in the room compared to before when you couldn't. And I get so excited about that, and I was excited the other night again after I had talked to you, and then I watched the end of it, of the movie, and I'm not going to mess the movie up, but for anybody that's out there and hasn't seen it, that Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is absolutely tremendous, from meditation wise and consciousness wise, and that's the whole idea of the movie.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. So on your investigations, and I don't want to just limit it to that, I want to talk about some other things too, but out of all your investigations you guys have been on, what is your best location that you've been to?
What do you think?
I like the Outer Ringling Mansion.
I know you do. I knew you were going to say that. It's a good one.
That's my favorite.
Right.
It's a mansion in Baraboo, Wisconsin, and it was built just at the turn of the to the 19th to the 20th century, and it was owned by the eldest Ringling brother of the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Right.
And he passed away there, I want to say, in his bathtub.
Yeah, right upstairs. The bathtub's still there. You can see it.
New Year's Day, I want to say it was 1916. But right at New Year's Day. And that house, I mean, it's so cool because just from it's so detailed. It's built out of bricks from stone of the Baraboo River. Like
they took the clay from the river and fired it into the bricks for the house.
It's just
wow.
Down to like there's this, just to kind of quickly mention, they tried to have a family, but they miscarried a lot, and so there's like a mural with cherubs in the greeting room. So it's very storied, and it's very special to us because we got married there.
We did. Well, we know the owner.
Wow.
Yeah,
he's great. His family's great.
So it just, there's something really special about it. I just like the entire like family history and the encounters that have been reported there, and that's where I've had one of my more profound.
You got to tell them about that
encounters. Yeah. So we were in the greeting room. And a lot of old mansions, like you walk in the foyer and there's a bunch of rooms off to the side. That's just kind of how they used to be. Because I think they would, you kind of had a public part of the house, and then you'd go upstairs and it's all, bedrooms.
And then it's private part.
Right. So there's like 4 rooms downstairs. There's the billiards room, the dining room, Al's office, and the greeting room. So Al's office and the greeting room both are by the front door.
Right across from each other.
Right across from each other. And we had just been in the greeting room, and we had been learning about the cherubs on the ceiling and the miscarriages and stuff.
Right. Well, this was during a
tour, by the way.
A private tour. So we could kind of go through and hear some of the stories and do a little bit of investigating. So
exactly.
It was only us and 3 friends of us, and then the guy giving us the tour.
Exactly. So, I was photographing it, documenting it. And it was, we were there on a pretty dark, stormy night in I want to say it was June or July in 2016. And I wanted to attach my flash unit to the top of my camera. And on cameras, there's a part called the hot shoe. And that's where you can attach various different equipment. Sometimes people put microphones on it, but more often than not, it's for a flash. And so it has batteries but it receives a signal from the camera. And so I pull the flash out of my bag, and I didn't have batteries in it. So I start, trying to put batteries in the hallway. I step aside so I can take pictures of the other room. And all of a sudden, without batteries in the flash and with no attachment to the camera, the flash is just going off nonstop. And I'm just like, what is happening? And he's looking annoyed at me, what are you doing? Stop screwing around.
From my perspective, I didn't see her doing this. So all I saw was out of the corner of my eye, the flash going off over and over. And finally I turned to her and I'm just like, would you knock it off?
And I'm holding them in this is the flash. I'm like,
right. And I see her holding, she's got the flash in one hand, batteries in the other, just looking bewildered because there's no logical explanation for this flash going off.
Yeah.
There was a male ghost there that just wanted to help Emily out with her camera.
Yes. It has to be the most spectacular electrical malfunction we've
absolutely
ever witnessed.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many times do you think it went off? About 7? Something like that? 8?
How many times did it go off? Yeah. If not more.
Holy cow.
Well, it kept doing it then afterward. So even then, because I guess, so actually, why don't you explain it? Because
so I got it together and I put it on the camera and we walk into the other room. We're talking about the sightings in Al's office. And then I would just not be ready to take a picture and it would just fire.
Yeah. And it was only on the first floor, right?
Only on the first floor. As soon as we went upstairs, it stopped, which is interesting because that's where Al died. But I guess if you're thinking about someone's consciousness after the fact, they would probably want to hang out in their office, not with the bathtub where they died.
Well, all of the reported activity too, for the most part, is on the first floor.
Yep.
So where people report their sightings and experiences, that's where the flash was going off.
Yep.
Now, there's very little ever reported upstairs in that mansion. Closest thing would be like every once in a while they'll hear like phantom footsteps on the grand staircase. But as far as like the second floor is concerned, it's relatively quiet compared to like the first floor where everything happens. So that was interesting too.
Yeah.
And then well, something else happened there. This was on our wedding.
Yeah. So we, you know, a year later, we got married there Friday, October 13th.
In October, yeah. That was
because that's the kind of people we are.
Right. In a haunted mansion, of course.
And it was just after our first dance. And with iPhones, you can take a photo and have part of it animate for a few seconds if you put your thumb on it. And our friend was just trying to take a picture of us, I guess. And all in this.
It was a sweet moment, yeah.
Yeah. And so like there's nobody, there's like the bar to the left of the frame. And you know, you might see like some tabletop, and like us off near the bar. And all of a sudden you see this figure just cross and just kind of disappear. And he is like ghost white in like a suit or something. Cause like I inversed the image to be like, see what the negative colors were. Cause it's kind of like a photo negative. So like if you were looking at a photo negative of like regular Caucasian skin, it would actually be kind of blue because it's opposite of what that is on the color spectrum. And I was curious to see if we'd get any like skin tones. And no, it was pure black, the opposite of white.
That's how pale this figure was.
Yeah.
And what's weird, you know, there were other people in the picture. And, you know, honestly, Emily and I were pretty pale people.
Yeah.
And we looked, you know, like we had Caucasian flesh tones, you know.
Yeah.
And whatever this person or thing or whatever was, it was way paler than anybody else. And it was just so bizarre how it just kind of shows up out of nowhere and like moves behind us and is gone.
And it was behind our nephew too, who was the ring bearer, and he didn't seem to notice it.
Yeah, nobody seems to notice or anything.
Mm-hmm. So that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was weird.
We need to go back
on our website. I'll have to send it to you, since I mean, you know, if you haven't seen it, but it was pretty spectacular.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, hands down my favorite.
Now on the same note with cryptics. Have you done a lot of investigations on that? And besides what you do, you know, for the society, have you done anything? Would you consider your work in the kettle to be that? You
know, that's really tough because we did all of the Lake Michigan Mothman stuff. And a lot of that was really, really interesting. And we did get, I mean, we've interviewed a lot of witnesses. We've talked to a lot of people. We visited a lot of sighting locations. But if I had to pick one specific location that was the most interesting, then I would have to say the Kettle Moraine. Absolutely. Because, you know, like for the Lake Michigan Mothman and even some of the like Bigfoot sightings and things we've investigated, those have been all over the place, right? But the Kettle Moraine, I mean, it's got everything, and it's in this, you know, relatively small geographic area. Like it's a state forest, so it's pretty big.
Yeah.
But you know, as far as like, you know, total land mass on the planet or something, you know, it's a relatively small geographic area. But it's got everything from reported, you know, Bigfoot sightings to Dogman. You know, honestly, there have been flying humanoid sightings in the area, not specifically the kettle, but in that area of southeastern Wisconsin. You know, it's got anomalous like balls of light that we've seen personally. You know, even because we go out there with Jay Bachochin quite a bit, and he actually got one of the anomalous balls of light on his body cam. Now this was an interesting situation. So This was towards the end of one of our hikes. And I was out in front with Adam Benedict of the Pine Barrens Institute. And so Adam and I are out in front, and we do this thing called leapfrogging, where like a couple of us will go ahead and the other people will stay back, and then eventually they'll start walking to kind of catch up, just to spread out a little bit. And so Adam and I were out in front on the trail, and then Jay and Emily and my niece was there too. We're all kind of behind. No, I think my niece was up with Adam and I, and then Emily and Jay were behind us. And I happened to be the only person in the group up front who was looking straight ahead. And so I see this ball of light appear out of nowhere down the trail. It was probably, oh boy, I am terrible at like judging distance, but it was relatively close. It had to be maybe 50 yards, 100 yards away. And it appears at the top of the tree line and moves down through the trees and then disappears at the ground. And what's interesting was you could tell that it wasn't behind the trees. It wasn't like something coming out of the sky, like a meteor or something similar, because you could see it. The light that it was shedding was illuminating the trees behind it. And so it was very, very clearly in the actual trees. Like not behind it, not an optical illusion, like it was there. And Jay and Emily and I are the only ones who actually saw it, because I was looking straight ahead. I shouted some choice expletives, and I was like, did you guys see that? And luckily they did. And since they were facing it, Jay got it on his body cam. Now, his body cam is pretty similar to mine as far as like the resolution and everything. So like it's great for stuff that's up close, and it kind of falls off relatively rapidly past a certain point, But it did capture it on there, like you can see it, and we have it in one of our videos.
Yep.
And it's definitely there. It absolutely happened. He caught it on camera. It's not as spectacular as it was to the naked eye, but it just goes to show, like that stuff is real. There's something going on out there, and it's like every time we go, there's something new. We were just out there not too long ago. We went out again. It was us and Jay and Adam, and we went out there because we wanted to plant a trail cam. So I bought this trail cam, and interestingly enough, our friend Nate Brislin, right?
Yeah.
Over at
he's got a podcast.
He does a lot of stuff.
It was our basis, the podcast.
Right.
He did Pine State Phantoms documentary.
He did do that. That was really good.
He does everything.
He does so much where I'm almost like I can never think of like Nate of like 50 different things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he actually let us know about this company out of it was Minnesota. I think it was Duluth, that combined human and ape pheromone, like to make what they sort of guessed, like assuming Sasquatch is an undiscovered primate species, like what they would guess that Sasquatch pheromone like would smell like, right? And so, he turned us on to that, and we bought some. And I was like, well, let's get this trail cam, and I'm going to put one of these pheromone chips on it, right? Bait this trail cam, and it set it up in the kettle. And so we went out there to do that, and even on that visit, we had like weird stuff happen. Like that was one where Adam had heard
twig snapping.
Well, it was more than that, because it was like something stomping its foot. And at first, we thought, okay, like could this be like a deer or something, because they'll stamp their hoofs and stuff sometimes. But I guess it sounded more, because that's a relatively distinctive sound, but it sounded a lot heavier and much more similar to, like say if I were stomping on the ground with my booted foot, or something with like a much larger foot. And also, when this is weird, I don't think we've seen a deer since we've been out there, which is weird because we see deer everywhere here. Like I
Yeah.
can go, we see deer in the middle of the city in Madison here.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And we never see them out there for some weird
Yep.
reason. They got to be there,
Yeah.
but you just never see them. But anyway, so there
I
was
feel
some.
like we've seen them cross the road, but that's about it.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's probably right. And anyway, so yeah, like he heard some weird noises and that was weird. But yeah, I mean, I could see somebody thinking, okay, well maybe that was just a weird animal or something, right? And then I heard basically the same thing. I heard some branches snapping, and then something stomping, really really loudly when when I was by myself, and then we finally got to, and stop me if I'm forgetting something because I have a tendency to forget things sometimes.
Okay.
And then we got to where we were going to place the trail cam. Oh wait, no. Before that, I saw I had a weird sighting. That's right. How could I possibly forget that? So we were walking down the trail. This was after Adam had heard something, but prior to me having heard anything. And we're walking down the trail, and I'm looking straight ahead, like I do. And I see at the end of the trail, and again, nobody happens to be looking that way. I see what looked like this huge shadowy figure kind of come out of the tree line. So if you can picture, we're on this trail in the middle of a forest. It's a relatively wide trail. It's wide enough for like 3 people to walk next to each other, no problem. And maybe 100, 150 feet, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the trail curves like over to the left, and so right where it kind of curves there, I see something that looked huge, like a huge humanoid shadow, like come out, take like 2 or 3 steps, and then just like disappear. And at first, I was like, okay, so whatever that was, I don't know what it was. And if it wasn't, my eyes playing tricks on me or something, then it must have come out, like crossed the trail in just a few steps and disappeared into the trees on the other side of it. Well, we get up there, and it turns out, and this wasn't apparent to me, from as far back in the trail as we were, but we get up there, and this area where it had disappeared into had been cleared out by the DNR. So they removed a bunch of the undergrowth, and they've been taking some trees out and stuff, just for, I assume, forest maintenance. I don't know what the reasoning was. And so there was just no place for it to disappear. Like it had to have just basically vanished into thin air, which was bizarre. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just no way that it could have just disappeared into the trees, not that quickly anyway.
Right.
And so that was bizarre. And it did happen very quickly. And it was outside of the range, because at this point it was dark out. And it was outside of the range of the IR for my body cam. But, Jay went through frame by frame. And there was an interesting anomaly, going through frame by frame that shows this kind of giant figure that's kind of just there and then vanishes. And so, I mean, that was interesting. Again, like I'm the only one who saw it. And so, take that for what it's worth, assuming I wasn't seeing things or it wasn't like a trick of the light or something. Like it absolutely looked like this giant thing came out, took 2 or 3 steps, and was just gone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. And it's always something like that when we go up there, honestly. Like almost every time there's something, at least, that I would describe as spectacular. And so it was after that I actually heard the same thing as Adam. Mm-hmm. But again, sounded like stomping. It didn't really sound like, like a buck, stamping its hoof on the ground. It sounded like somebody with a foot, breaking some branches and then stomping on the ground. And we got out to where we wanted to place the trail cam. So we found like a little cleared out area that we thought would be pretty good, because otherwise, I mean, this forest is really thick. It's you'd need a machete to just walk out into it, you know. And so we find another cleared out area and decide that we're gonna put the trail cam with that pheromone chip on it, you know, on sort of the far side of this clearing. And Jay and I go over there and we do that, and Emily wants to take some pictures of the night sky, which turned out amazing, of course. And Jay and I finish that up. We get everything attached and whatnot, and we come back and we start hearing things moving around us, and we couldn't see anything, but it sounded like multiple of whatever it was, moving around us in this clearing. And it sounded like multiple somethings walking around, you know, and not not in a way you would expect for like a normal, you know, wild animal. Like animals in the wild aren't real curious about humans. They're usually just in a huge hurry to get the heck away from you, frankly. And whatever this was, I mean, it sounded, you could hear the twigs, you know, snapping on the ground and the undergrowth, you know, rustling in different directions around us. And it wasn't moving away. It was moving sort of parallel to us, around us, you know, in different spots.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, at that point, we thought, you know, well, you know, I don't see anything. It could just be something checking us out. So, you know, now's as good a time as any to just, you know, make our way back out of the forest and go on with our evening, right? Well, because, you know, I was kind of thinking too. So if it is something, you know, something like a cryptid or something, you know, paranormal, you know, and if it maybe was attracted to the pheromone, even for all we know, because that was it felt like, especially in hindsight now thinking about it, you know, we hadn't had really an experience like that where it felt like we had been approached so directly. And the only thing that was really different was the presence of the Sasquatch pheromone this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so for all I know, that pheromone, which is remarkably potent, by the way.
I hate it.
Oh yeah, it smells real bad. You know, for all I know, that pheromone was attracting things that were curious, but not so curious that they were going to come out into the open with us, you know. So, you know, it just made sense to kind of move on at that point and see, well, okay, if it is the pheromone, then we'll see what the trail cam gets.
Yep.
Honestly, we'll be going back a week from today. We're going back next Friday to pick up the trail cam and see what we got. So,
have you guys been up there overnight at all? Have you been out there till like 3?
Campgrounds near there that we've talked about going to before, but just haven't. And I think this year got away from us with the.
You know, my son, I dropped him off last Sunday morning at the start of the trail over the other side of Waterford.
Okay.
And then he didn't do it up to day 3, but he did 2 days. He did, trying to remember the mileage, and he camped at that campsite. I mean, it's for hikers basically, right?
Sure.
There's a bunch of those, yeah.
And I would be really curious if you took some time the next time you go in there, because a lot of these guys do it for training. So they're out there a lot too. And if they're in their tents at night, can you imagine what that's like? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
I mean, that's something that I think we're going to do, definitely. Like that's a given. I think that, like Emily said, this year, obviously with everything going on, and kind of
everything's been
a lot of things fell by the wayside that maybe we would have done otherwise. But
well, my son was set on 3 days, and he comes home at the end of day 2. So it's like, you know, I haven't had the opportunity really to pick his brain and say, okay, why did you come home early like his mother did? You know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that is interesting. So you got to wonder. Yeah, I mean,
he had a big blister on his foot, but besides that,
Right.
He had the shortest part of the hike left, basically.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, you have to wonder because those woods are real weird, and it would be pretty spooky by yourself with a lot of the stuff that goes
Yep.
on in there.
even if you
So,
had 4 or 5 tents around you, that would be the same thing as that Siberian stuff that happened to those students back in the day.
oh yeah, yeah.
That
I mean, well,
knocked
So
off
scary.
that was unbelievable.
oh,
Mhm.
But
absolutely.
as long as with us talking about cryptics and all that, and I know that that's one of the parts. I just wanted to touch something really fast with Emily because of I've been watching and paying attention to all her posts with the butterflies,
Oh,
with the monarchs. And you know what? There's a lot of people that really feel that those are really special little creatures.
yeah. And it's really interesting the like mythology that comes. I love the mythology and the folklore with the Day of the Dead, because as they migrate into Mexico every fall, that falls over their Day of the Dead festival. And so a lot of the belief behind the butterflies is that they are the returning spirits of, initially it was like lost children and lost mothers, but it's since evolved into lost souls returning to visit during this time. So there's a lot of significance and some symbolism with them. And who's to say that the spirits don't catch a ride with them,
Oh, what a better way to fly, huh?
Right. So
No,
that's definitely something
that's
that I really appreciate about them.
so you grow them and everything.
Yeah.
You see,
I
but
raised them. Yeah.
these people, a lot of these people that are listening right now, don't have any idea what we're really talking about. And,
Sure. So,
and it's pretty neat,
yeah,
that's what,
I think too, it's important, even from just being a paranormal investigator, everybody needs to spend more time connecting with nature, because the greater you will understand everything, whether it be in the natural world or supernatural world. But just to summarize it, you've seen those orange and black butterflies every summer, and those are the monarch butterfly. And in the last decade or so, their population has dropped about 80 to 90%. And that is due to mostly habitat loss, because they eat one very specific genus of plant called milkweed. So that they're losing that habitat with between like development, agriculture, and all that stuff. But also, other environmental factors, be it adapted predation, climate, and pesticides. So they've really got a lot against them. And for a tiny insect to migrate down thousands of miles, it's a big, big task. And so I feel like other populations of pollinators have a better chance because they might overwinter, or they might just go to Florida instead of flying all the way to Mexico. But what I do is every summer I find caterpillars and eggs, and I raise them within my own protection outside in screened enclosures. And, I document it, but once they're butterflies, I release them to hopefully help with some of that pollination. And the more that I document it, the more people become aware of it, because even though, I can't raise hundreds, it's a better tool of creating awareness and educating others. So that's what I do with them.
how you buy the caterpillars.
No, I find them out in the nature.
Oh, you find them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when the schools do the program, which some schools do down here,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming they'd have to buy the
There are
caterpillars.
places you can buy them. Like there's the Foundation Monarch Watch is the ones who issue the tags. So every time you have a fall migration, you can put a little sticker on their wings with a unique code. And if they find that sticker down in Mexico, they know that butterfly traveled from Wisconsin because I've logged my data. But they also do sell monarch rearing kits for classrooms with that purpose. I think Some teachers do manage to find them if they're willing to put in the work. You have to be very careful when purchasing various Lepidoptera species, simply because they might not be raised in ethical conditions. A lot of them are raised for weddings and funerals, which, back to the folklore and the, the symbolism, it's beautiful. Like, can you imagine like a celebration of life and releasing a bunch of butterflies as, you say goodbye to somebody? I think there's something very powerful about that. But they've also become very commercialized. So you do have to be very careful where you purchase them from if you're going to do that.
Okay, so you would be the authority on where to purchase them from.
I am happy to answer that question. I've done a bunch of research on that. There are 2 places I recommend, and that's it. So
if you could post those 2, that would be great.
Sure.
And I don't have any chat line or anything here, and I'm relying on people that I know that are supposed to be giving me, in case there are questions or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
There should be posting them. But it's I bring up the butterflies because everybody always talks about dragonflies too.
Yep.
And this is all on the same light,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always somebody that comes to visit you or say hi to you for some reason that you have no idea about. And lately I've been going through this journey,
Mm-hmm.
and I had things that happened to me 7, 8 years ago that for some ungodly reason, I would sort of post it and say, you know what? That was a little bit weird. And just the other day, it happened to me again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a sign.
Another popular one is the cardinals visiting.
That's in my family, my whole life, that, my mom and every, her sisters and
Mm-hmm.
everybody, if you have like sort of get a special visit from a cardinal, then that's one of your relatives who's passed,
Mm-hmm.
coming to visit.
And I think it's the whole interesting concept of spirit animals is so broad and so unique to individuals too.
Hmm.
So when you guys get together and we have a somewhat of what we consider to be a paracon, if it's going to happen, where would be the places that everybody would be able to find you guys?
Oh, like online?
On as far as going to locations, like what paracons would you be around? Would you be in the Milwaukee one if you could?
If we could, I think we might be online for that one.
Yeah, I think normally we do go to the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. Normally we also go to Haunted America down in Alton. We went to Dead of Winter in Alton this past year. We've been to like the Illinois Paranormal Conference in Rockford. Every once in a while they'll pop up here in Wisconsin too. So we were at the Maple Tainter Theater. It was in 2019 for Paranomicon.
Yep.
That was an interesting one. So, in some of these, like hopefully they come back. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think the ones in Alton will. I think, Troy and Lisa down there do a fantastic job. They've got a great community.
Mm-hmm.
And so Haunted America and Dead of Winter aren't going anywhere. We have been speaking with T. Krulos over in Milwaukee. He organizes the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, and I think they're going to move forward with something online this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were in talks with him to do some kind of live investigation with Jay, maybe out in the kettle.
Yep.
So that could be interesting.
Yep.
But I mean, any and all conferences in the area, of course, we're always interested in.
Right.
And then if there's ever any conferences people want to see us at, like literally the best way, because a lot of times people will come to us and be like, well, hey, are you going to be at this conference or that conference, or are you speaking here? Are you guys going to be there? And a lot of it's not really up to us.
Right.
We kind of go where we're invited. And
Right.
so, if there's ever a conference people want to see us at, talk to the organizer. Be like, hey, get the Singular Fortean Society here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to get us any place, honestly.
Right.
But I mean, that's most of the conferences that we go to.
Mm-hmm.
like we had well, this is another thing that that got, canceled, pushed back. We were going to do a library talk up in Rhinelander. We were going to do that with Adam, and then of course, COVID happened, and it got canceled. And they talked about pushing it back, but we haven't really heard anything since. So I'm certain that with where Wisconsin is at as far as like the various mandates and library closures specifically, that who knows, that probably won't end up happening this year, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, we'd like to get into more of like the library talks and stuff like that too.
Well, the Chicago con is supposed to be, I can't remember the name of the place, but it's in the city of Holcomb, which is actually the Holcomb Flowage, which is up off of 27. And I can't remember the name of it, but I don't know if that's even going to happen. And that's next month too.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Ursula's.
Right. Yeah, that was one of Ursula's. And I know we have, like, we know a lot of the same people. Like we've never been able to meet Ursula or anything. I think I've chatted with her online a few times, but that's about it. But boy, yeah, I can't imagine trying to host an in-person event like that in Illinois, especially around Chicago or Wisconsin, where we are with everything going on. I don't think that you can. I don't think you'll get away with it. I mean, Chad Lewis even had to cancel, the Van Meter Visitor Festival, and that's
outside.
Yeah, that's outside in a tiny town in Iowa, and he still had to cancel that. And so I don't see anybody up here getting away with having a conference, frankly.
I was just looking for dates for Edinburgh Manor, which is just across the Iowa border, and it's a great location, and I was looking at dates, and they're getting eaten up. People are, but if you're doing a small group,
yeah,
right.
If you're doing 5 people,
mm-hmm.
10 people at the max, and they're giving you the whole place,
that's different.
It's definitely going to be the look of the future, I think, compared to going ahead and trying to go in. I don't know how they're going to handle the bigger places, real big, Trans-Allegheny,
Mm-hmm.
boy, you'd have to investigate that building for 10 days straight with 10 people. You never get, even if you just try to hit the hot spots.
Right.
And
yeah, I mean, it's everything like that. Anything that sort of relies on, well, any of the, like any hospitality industry, any entertainment industry, anything in our field with the paranormal, like Emily and I do okay going out by ourselves or with a tiny group, like if it's just us and maybe Jay and Adam.
Right.
But last year we went to the Farrar Schoolhouse and had like a conference and investigations out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we'd be able to get away with that this year. You just couldn't. I mean, it's close quarters, people sleeping,
in the gym,
in sleeping bags, in the gym, in the office, like right next to each other. I just don't think you'd be able to do it.
Yeah,
it's too bad. And you're right, like some of those bigger places, you can't get it all done in one night. You really can't.
Usually have more people because it costs you more to get the building.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same point, it's still so huge, and then you're dealing with the fact of whether or not they want to be there with you or not.
Right.
So, you have one bad cookie and, all of a sudden they go ahead and say, no, I'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. Or you ain't going to show up.
Yeah.
And leave it at that. But it's been an amazing trip. I know for everything that I've done and I've seen, and I know you guys have done more, especially when it comes to the outdoors.
Mm.
And that's an amazing part in itself. And it's just a whole different world.
Mhm.
You know, if you got to go out around a haunted location and hunt around the outside of a building at 2:30 in the morning, wow, I think I'd rather take the inside.
Right?
You
Yeah, no, there's something to that.
you can never tell what you're going to run into.
It's true. Well, yeah, because there's a lot of other concerns too. Nature can be pretty scary sometimes,
Yeah.
and it can be pretty dangerous. And if you're in the middle of the woods, at midnight or something, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And I know, obviously, there are a lot of things that can go wrong in old buildings and stuff too, but
Oh,
none of those include, like mountain lions and bears and stuff. So you just never know. Yeah, and well, like I was talking about how thick the Kettle Moraine forest is. Like this time of year in the summertime, it's so thick. You could, if you wandered off by yourself for God knows what reason, and you broke your leg or something off the trail, or something happened to you, uh, and people wouldn't. It'd be hard to find you. We'll just say, because you'd be covered up real quick, not that far off of the trail, if you wandered out into the thick parts of the forest. And that goes double for a forest like Nicolet National Forest up north. A lot of Bigfoot sightings up there, but you absolutely, like, you have to take the same precautions that you would if you were going hiking or backpacking or camping or anything else, because a lot of people go missing in national forests, and they're not always found, and it's because it can be really hard to find somebody if something happens to them out there. So
Right.
you want to be careful. Yeah.
oh, that I can't remember his name. He spoke in Chicago about 4 or 5 years ago, and that was that 411 program.
David,
Missing 411.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's same thing. Yeah.
I was watching a show on that the other night, and it's just unbelievable. These people just vaporize.
Right. Well, there was they had I think it's a relatively new documentary, where it focuses on like hunters specifically, right?
Right.
And I mean, yeah, those are guys like they know the outdoors. They were in areas where they shouldn't have just been able to vanish like that, and yet they did. And I think about that, man. I really do. Every time we go out, I think about that, and how important it is to never go anywhere by yourself. Obviously, is number one for us, but making sure you have like basic stuff, so you could survive overnight if you had to, so you could find your way out if you had to. Frankly, just having like a compass is, could save your life if you got turned around.
I have those blankets in my boat, those
Uh-huh.
NASA blankets or whatever they are, the foil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have those, and I have kits and everything in there, because every time we would be up in Canada on Lake of the Woods, that was the big thing, because we travel so far. You could travel 47, 50 miles a day fishing, and your GPS goes out. What do you do then? And we know quite a few of these areas by heart now, but there's still other areas there that if we don't run into a landmark, we know we're just as lost as anybody else.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, in Canada, boy, that's a whole nother level as far as like wilderness is concerned, because we think we have some open land here, but Canada it's all wilderness, with like cities are the exception there, and it's mostly wilderness. So
Yeah.
it's something else.
So it's getting a little late, and I just
Okay.
want to go ahead and welcome you guys to come back with me down the road here a bit.
Anytime.
Absolutely.
We're happy to.
And maybe we could talk a little more about some of the islands up in that Canadian wilderness on the water there, with the trees, and how it looks like they're pathways that our friend Mr. Bigfoot is established
Yeah,
down the
absolutely.
road. Emily, Tobias, thank you very much for joining me tonight, and I hope everybody enjoyed themselves with the Shadow Hour tonight.
Hey,
And
thanks for
we'll-
having us,
Thank
Greg.
you.
And we'll be back on the Shadow Hour next week at 8 o'clock. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Take
bye-bye.
care.
Bye.